Hi everyone, welcome to video number 4 in our series on plant-based cooking. In this video, Hilda Lisa is going to share about dietary fats, and Rachel is going to share 5 recipes that feature nuts.
Dietary fats are actually very necessary. It's an essential nutrient. In fact, we need dietary fat for energy, cell growth, absorption of nutrients, especially vitamins A, D, E, and K. We need fat for hormone production, to protect our organs, to be warm, and to reduce the glycemic impact of meals. So dietary fats are very necessary. There are 4 main types of dietary fats. We have the saturated and trans fats, and I should say that these major or the main types of fats, they just differ in chemical structure and physical properties. So that's the difference between them. And they affect our bodies in different ways because of those structures. So we have the unhealthy fats. That's the saturated and the trans fats. They are more solid at room temperature, and they raise our bad cholesterol, our LDL cholesterol. That's the type of cholesterol that blocks our arteries. Then we have the healthy fats. Those are the monounsaturated fats and the polyunsaturated fats. These are liquid at room temperature, and they actually help to lower our bad cholesterol. So the American Heart Association has put out recommendations on dietary fats, and they recommend that replacing bad fats with good fats as part of a healthy eating plan is what we want to do. So if you think about it as the good, the bad, and the ugly, that will make more sense to you. So we have the good, which are the polyunsaturated and monounsaturated fatty acids. Then we have the bad, those are the saturated fats. And then we have the ugly, the last column you see there. That's where we have the processed foods and tropical oils. So there's also this graphic that was in a study from Harvard, and they kind of give us an idea of the mortality rate that's associated with each of these types of fats. So you see there that trans fats and saturated fats are associated with more mortality, risk of dying, than the monounsaturated and polyunsaturated fats. So there you have the good and the bad and the ugly. I also want to, you've probably noticed the reason why these, the polyunsaturated fats are associated with the least risk of mortality probably has to do with the omega-3 fat content that they have. And you see there the nuts and the avocados and the olive oils. There's also some omega-3 rich fish. But if you've been coming to Dinner with a Doctor or some of our other health programs, you understand that it is healthier to stick with the plant-based healthy fats than with the animal fats, because we can get the benefits without the adverse effects that the animal fats give us. And also the fish has no fibers, so that's one other thing against it. So it is best, the best sources of healthy fats are going to be whole, unprocessed plant foods like olives, avocados, nuts, and seed. So another thing you've heard us say a lot is that it's best to stick with the food as natural or as close to its natural state as possible. So let's talk about some of these healthy fats in particular. We have the omega-3s, and the omega-3s are polyunsaturated fats. They're good because they promote brain and nervous system function, normal functioning. They lower our cholesterol level, and they protect our heart health and reduce inflammation, which is associated with all sorts of chronic diseases. The sources for these omega-3 fats are going to be in walnuts, flaxseed, chia seeds, like last week's recipes, and hemp seed. So those are some good, there are other sources. Those are some very excellent plant-based sources. And I want to remind you that to get this, to access this fat in the flaxseed, you need to eat it ground, not whole. Here are the monounsaturated fats. These are also good fats. They're good because they increase our HDL cholesterol, that's the good cholesterol, without increasing the LDL or the bad cholesterol. Replacing these fats for saturated fats may reduce the total cholesterol. So the good thing is that they, again, they raise our good cholesterol, but they do not raise our bad cholesterol. The sources for the monounsaturated fatty acids are going to be your nuts. Oils are going to be the olive oil, canola oil, for example, and avocado oil. Or avocado in general. This is packed with dietary fiber, not the oil, but the whole avocado, has the dietary fiber, potassium, and vitamins. And then we also have peanut butter and other nut butters that are high in the monounsaturated fats. Now, I do want to spend a little time on the nuts because guess what? Tonight's recipes are going to focus on nuts. So the nuts, research shows that when we eat nuts, we're going to lower our bad cholesterol and our triglycerides, which is the total fat in our blood. We're going to improve the health lining of our arteries. That's because nuts contain a compound called L-arginine, and that helps to keep our arteries flexible. Also, we get lower levels of inflammation linked to heart disease. We're going to have reduced risk of blood clots, lower risk of dying early from heart disease and other causes. So you see that we really want to eat the nuts. They're high in protein and dietary fiber and vitamins and minerals, and they're rich in folate, magnesium, vitamin E. And the good thing, even though they are high in fat, the good fats, they will help our satiety level. So they're going to help us feel full with less amount of food. So yes, they are high in fat, high in calories. So we want to have boundaries and moderation. And of course, they're going to be high in the omega-3 fats, especially the walnuts. Now, I want to make very clear that we need to keep in mind that the benefit we're going to get the maximum benefit from eating nuts and all these other healthy sources of healthy fats if we do it in the context of a healthy diet. What do I mean by that? Well, if you start eating more nuts, which is recommended, but you don't decrease your intake of saturated fats, those that are found in dairy products or meat products, then you're not going to get the benefits, the heart benefits of the nuts. And also nuts that are covered in chocolate, sugar, or salt, they're kind of canceling out the benefits to our heart. So we want to keep in mind, this is in the context of a healthy diet. So here we have a visual of some of the fatty acid content of different nuts. And I just want to point out some more, some that stand out to me. So here we have the almonds. You notice that they are one of the highest, or the second highest there, maybe third highest, of the monounsaturated fats. So that's going to be really good. Then we have the walnuts that are really high in omega-3 fats. Now macadamias are really high in monounsaturated fats, but they're a little bit higher in saturated fats. So probably the almonds might be a better choice, but every now and then that would be a healthy option too. So what about the nut oils? Well, the oil, that's not very close to its natural state. So it's going to be very concentrated, a concentrated form of calories. So it's not going to be our first choice, but they are a good source of healthy nutrients. They do lack the fiber found in the whole nuts, and they're limited. They have a limited use in cooking because they shouldn't be overheated. They, most of them have a low smoke point. So if you overheat them, they're going to start to degrade. and we don't want that. So it's best to stick with the whole nuts as much as we can. Other oils, well, we have the king of the oils, which is extra virgin olive oil. And the reason is that the most scientific evidence-based health benefits has been found with the extra virgin olive oil. Avocado oil is very similar in composition to the olive oil, so it's a good option. And canola oil too is high in the monounsaturated fats. So you have there those three good options. And I cannot end this presentation without talking about coconut oil, because I'm sure you're familiar with all the hype about coconut oil. So we want to know, is it a miracle food? Is it friend or is it foe? Well, there was a survey, a New York Times survey, that found that 75% of Americans thought coconut oil was a healthy option. However, only 33% of nutrition experts agreed. So the fact is that there is no scientific support, no substantial scientific support for the supposed benefits of coconut oil. And some of these supposed benefits are weight loss or helping to control diabetes or reversing Alzheimer's. It would be good if we had research supporting that, but the evidence is just not there, and at least it's just not there yet. What we do know is that coconut oil is very high in saturated fat. About 90% of its composition is saturated fat, and that's going to raise our cholesterol level and increase our risk for heart attacks and or strokes. So the American Heart Association did a meta-analysis. It was reported earlier this year in their journal Circulation, and they found that the coconut oil significantly increased the LDL cholesterol levels, that's the bad cholesterol, and it significantly raised the total cholesterol. It did increase the good cholesterol too, so that's a good thing. But the bad thing is that it also increased the bad cholesterol and the overall cholesterol. Now, this was an article or a publication in, and my Zoom is covering what I'm saying there. But anyways, the authors here, I believe the title is Cardiovascular Nutrition Controversies. I'm sorry, I can't see the title. But the authors recommend to avoid coconut oil because of the effect that the high saturated fat content can have on your heart. So what they did is they divided the evidence into three categories. The first category, as you see on your screen, is evidence of harm. So you should limit or avoid, and that's where coconut oil fell. And then the middle one was inconclusive evidence for harm or benefit. And then the last column or category was the evidence of benefit. So things that are recommended that have been shown by research to be beneficial. And there you see the extra virgin olive oil. You see other things that we have already talked about, like the blueberries and strawberries because of the antioxidant content, the nuts and the green leafy vegetables, and the plant-based protein because they're significantly more heart healthy compared to animal proteins. The bottom line for coconut oil is that it's high in saturated fats, and it could have adverse effects on our cardiovascular disease risk factors. If you have heart disease, you should avoid using the saturated fats, including coconut oil. Others may use it occasionally in limited amounts, but in the context of a healthy diet, of course. And the bottom line also, according to the American Heart Association, is that instead of using it in your diet, you can enjoy using coconut oil on your skin and hair.
And the first one that we're going to start with is an almond butter recipe. The method, if you use a different nut, will have to be different than it is for the almond butter. It's a very simple procedure. You're just going to take a couple cups of almonds in this one, and I'm putting them on my pan, and I'm going to bake them to help them release their oil. I bake them for about 20 to 25 minutes. You don't want to over bake them, because if you do, then you have a burnt tasting almond butter. But you want to make sure that they are roasted so that they have a good flavor and they're easy to blend. And as you can see, there's one here that you'll be able to tell that the color is just a light golden brown on the inside. There's one of them. And so then you're just going to take these and you put them into a food processor bowl. And it's really that simple. I often will add salt. You can also add chia seeds and flax seeds to this if you want at the end, or to add some extra fat or oil. You do not need it though, and you do not have to add any extra oil to making your own butters. If you choose to use walnuts or pecans, you would only roast them for about 10 minutes, and their oils break up much faster. This is after about 3 minutes. This one is after about 5 minutes of running the food processor. This is what it looks like after about 7 minutes. You can see it kind of forming a ball and the oils releasing. And then you end up with the final product after about 10 minutes. And then I think I blend it one more time just to get everything well homogenized. And you can see it's creamy, the oils have released, and it just drips off of a spatula. And it keeps really well. This makes about 1 cup, 1¼ cups. And it keeps really well in the refrigerator, or you can just leave it in the pantry. And I've kept it for up to probably 6 months with no problems at all. And it's great with apples. And here's the recipe. So easy, right? 2 cups of almonds and a pinch of salt if you like to add salt. Again, you don't have to if you don't want to. I did not add any to mine. All right, the next recipe that we have is a cashew cheese sauce. I have made the cashew cheese sauce with sunflower seeds. I have not tried it with walnuts. You can use Brazil nuts if you want to try those. They're high in selenium. And this is the cashew cheese sauce. I make this in 2 different methods. And I'll kind of explain what I did here for the kale chips that you'll see on this. Very easy. Everything is going to go in the blender. I use a whole entire red pepper. Other people I've seen have used roasted red peppers or pimentos. I just prefer the taste of the fresh red bell pepper. These are cashew pieces. And I only used, the ratio of water was 1 cup to 1 cup of cashews. It makes it a little bit thicker for putting onto kale chips. If you put it on too thin, then it just kind of flakes off when you're trying to eat your kale chips and you have cheese dust going everywhere. And then onion powder, garlic powder, and salt. So very simple. You blend it, and this is still kind of thin, probably because I used cashew pieces. You can use less water too. And then just pour it on kale. And I just use probably maybe 1/4 cup on that much kale. And you massage it into your kale. Very simple. And then I have a dehydrator, so I like to put it on my dehydrator trays. You can also bake it at a very low temperature, like as low as your oven will go, and leave it in for about 4 hours. I would say probably less than that. If it's baked, I'll have to ask Lisa on that because I've never used it in the oven. The rest of it I put into a pan to thicken up, and this is served and delicious over all kinds of vegetables with pasta, anything. And I added the extra water back in. And I'm just going to heat it up until it thickens, and then you can pour it over your favorite vegetables, and it's delicious. And there is the recipe for that. These we called rustic croutons, and you'll see why when you see them. Now again, why make your own croutons? Well, because you can. And you can not have the extra carbohydrates, and you can add some nutrition into your diet. These have a really nice crunch, so they kind of look like dog food in this picture. I'm sorry. I should have put them on a green salad, but this is what we had. Here's our croutons. Now in this recipe, I chose to use almonds again. Again, you could use all seeds. You could use You could use walnuts or pecans, just depending on what kind of texture you wanted. I added sesame seeds and pumpkin seeds to this. Everything's just gonna get ground up to a very coarse texture. The one thing that I didn't put in this when I made it, which caused me problems later, was the water. I did add it to the recipe, but I did not put it into this video. And so they didn't stick together as well as they should have. So you will want, I ended up adding a little water later, and when I realized that I was missing it. And you blend them up till they're, still have texture to them. And then you're gonna use a spoon, or you can use your fingers, but it's easier to use a spoon to I used a half teaspoon to kind of scoop up a little bit and then push it off onto the tray. Now, as you can see, mine fell apart just a little bit because I didn't put the right amount of water. I didn't put any water in it. And this took probably about 5 minutes to do in making your own. And my kids really enjoyed them on a salad. There they are. And we just baked them. You bake them for like 25 minutes at 350. And the finished product is delicious with the Italian seasoning. You could change up the spices as well if you would like. Very easy to make. And there's the recipe for those. Yeah, see, I put the plus 3 tablespoons of water on that. I don't know how many of you love kale salad. I was not a big fan at first, but this recipe completely won me over. And I continue to take it to many gatherings just because I think it's so delicious. So let me share this with you. We love our kale around here. This is the Parmesan that you make out of pecans. I've already roasted these pecans for, like I said, about 8 to 10 minutes at 350, and then I ground them up a little bit in my food processor. This is a microplane grater. If you don't have one, I highly recommend getting one. They're fabulous for garlic, for ginger, for lemons, for limes, whatever you want to use it for. And adding 1 clove of garlic and some salt and nutritional yeast. It gives it kind of a nutty, cheesy flavor. In plant-based diets, we often use nuts for a cheese replacement. It kind of gives you that flavor. And roasting the nuts makes it extra delicious because roasted pecans just have such a depth of flavor that you can add to so many different things. And so that's the pecan Parmesan part of it. And then this is the salad. So you can see the Parmesan is there. And again, you could use walnuts for that, but it was pecans that we used. I prefer pecans in this recipe. This is the salad dressing. So we have our lemon juice. Again, we're adding our garlic and salt and olive oil and a little bit of maple syrup. And that'll all be combined to this little tiny jar that we have to make a dressing. The interesting thing about kale is when you put dressing on it, you want to really work at massaging the kale, your dressing into the kale. It allows it to break down a little bit. It's easier to chew and it's easier to digest. Otherwise, you feel like you're eating shoe leather sometimes. So I highly recommend putting that dressing on and just making sure you get all of it well coated. And there we are stirring it with a chopstick. This dressing and this lemon and olive oil dressing is really, it adds a nice tang and it's just really delicious, especially with the extra garlic in there. And so again, just making sure it's well coated and maybe even waiting like 15 to 20 minutes before you serve it. You don't have to, but it helps again with the texture of chewing it. And then very simply, you're just gonna plate it. You throw your salad, your kale salad on your plate and add a handful of dried cranberries. You could also use tart dried cherries if you wanted. And then your pecan Parmesan. And it is just, it's a fabulously delicious salad. I hope you all try it because I'm just a huge fan of it. And you can, this makes a lot of pecan Parmesan. So you can have it and store it in the refrigerator for a few days and have multiple salads with it. Or you can take it to big, like family dinners or something like that, if we ever get to get back together and have those. All right, and the recipe for that is right there. And again, you'll get these in your email. We will send them out once the class is done. The last thing we made was a walnut basil pesto. I never knew how well basil grew until I moved to the South. I didn't ever have much luck with it where I lived, but since we can grow basil down here so well, pesto is just an amazing thing to have on hand all the time. It freezes well, and it's just fabulous. So in this recipe, start off, I will tell you, you can roast your walnuts. I did not in this recipe, but you can. It adds another depth of flavor if you'd like. Just everything goes into the food processor. I love recipes that are simple and don't take too much time. This is spinach. I just grabbed a couple handfuls of spinach to throw in there, just to add some volume and some nutrition and some flavor. And then some basil. This is 2 cloves of garlic. They were kind of small, so if you have large cloves of garlic, or if you really like garlic, you can add more or less depending on your taste. And then I juiced, I think, about 1 lemon. So that also is to taste. You may or may not want as much lemon. And very simply, just blend it up in the food processor, and it's such a beautiful green color. It just makes you want to eat it right now. You can throw it on pasta. You can put it on bread. That's the way my family likes to eat it, is with bread and tomatoes and things like that. And so, and pasta. We'll often put it on pasta. And so, again, you could use almonds in this recipe. You could use different seeds. You could use different nuts, but they're all interchangeable in that way for your nutrition. Here's the recipe for that. Again, very simple. I put salt to taste, but I would say probably a 1/2 teaspoon to 3/4 of a teaspoon is what I ended up using.
Thanks for watching this video. If you found it helpful, be sure to like it by giving it a thumbs up. Also, subscribe to this channel to receive more content like this. We also have a website, southbaysda.org/health, where you can learn all about the programs we have throughout the year. Thanks.